trainers are scared for you to know. And if you're curious about working with us, go ahead and click the link below and we'll see how we can help. But one of the things that trainers are terrified of for you to know is that cardio is, it's just as good for longevity as strength conditioning. The world of personal training has basically built itself around strength training. Even before strength training was a big deal, it's still around strength training. Now, there are some caveats there that I'll get into in later videos around cardio and about alactic glycolytic training and how strength conditioning just in general is ultimately like a form of cardio, because cardio is just, puts the emphasis on your heart. When you're doing strength training, you're still putting pressure on your heart. See what I mean? Your heart rate's still going up, even if it's only going up for the 6 reps that you're doing your squat, it's still going up. Your heart rate might get up to 150 over those 150 beats per minute over the course of those 6 reps. So it is still there. But one of the things that doesn't happen with cardio, with steady state cardio, one of the things you won't get the huge benefit from unless you are already extremely deconditioned is the quality of life. But quality of life doesn't really improve with strength conditioning if you're doing it in a way that gets you hurt, which is, this isn't really even that hard to wrap your head around, but you can look it up. The number of injuries that started happening once strength training is introduced to any population, whether it's a demographic of football players back in the 80s or baseball players more recently, or the last 15 years of the general population really getting into strength conditioning, quality of life does not go up if you are injured. The injury rates during that time have basically quadrupled, if not a little bit more. So why? Well, it's probably because we, in the United States anyway, we used models that were just not applicable to the general population, not applicable to the demographics that we were using them with. And as I'll get into in other videos, we are not beings that live in the hinge of our hip. We don't move like Lego people. We rotate to move and do things. So our strength conditioning has to reflect that on some degree. Also, we're doing way too heavy for what's necessary. We're trying to max out all the time. We're doing a volume play when we shouldn't be doing a volume play. Anyway, there's a lot of things that we're doing just enough wrong that it is causing a lot of injuries. But quality of life will not improve with strength training if you're doing it in a way that causes injury. So if you do it right though, if you do strength training and you appreciate the different portions of the muscle contraction, and you use self-limiting exercises, and you are working out in a way that is specific to your individual circumstance, like somebody that, let's say that you've hyperextended your big toe. We had this case just the other day. Somebody had hyperextended their big toe and doing something outside of the gym, and so they're a mild injury, right? But if you've ever hyperextended your big toe, it's just called turf toe for short. It hurts really bad. It really sucks. So this person wasn't going to do a reverse lunge. This is something very simple. This person's not going to do a reverse lunge where they have to basically bend that toe back really hard. Why would we do that? You'd have to change the exercise. Somebody that, I can't tell you how many times I've done assessments and somebody goes, I go, okay, lift your arms over their head, and they go like this, They leaned back to lift their arms over their head because they can't get here. Now, is that a person that should be throwing weight up above their head? No, obviously not. That would be not a good idea. That's just going to wreck their shoulder. Should a baseball player that is constantly in this position, putting a lot of stress on that UCL, that ulnar collateral ligament, that ligament right there, should they be doing snatches? Probably not a great idea because of the force that is imposed right there. And these are just like a few examples. What about a knee issue that should be doing tons and tons of squats? And some people are like, well, then the squat is good for the knee. Well, it depends on the person. The squat is good for the knee for somebody that has healthy knees. What about a spine injury that is doing back squats? It's like maybe not the best idea for that individual person. So as long as it's specific to the person, but if it is, if you do hit all these points, then the joints become more durable. They become more stable. They become more impervious to injury. And then you get all the other benefits too. This is not widely known quite yet, but I think it will be in future years, is your IQ level after 35 starts to go down. And when strength training and cardio are put back into the person's life, it goes down. Like by 45, 50, your IQ level has actually dropped considerably. When strength and conditioning is put back in place, your IQ goes back up to the height that you had at about 35 years old. Now, that doesn't mean that you knew, this doesn't give 35-year-olds the ability to say that they know more than old people do. It just means that your ability to think and to work through things like you did when you were 35, because obviously the 70-year-old has accumulated more knowledge and more wisdom than the 35-year-old, but if they have strength conditioning, then they're able to think that much more. But your metabolism improves and your performance in life also improves. All these quality of life things really happen with strength and conditioning, and they don't really happen with cardio. But I think trainers are really scared for you to know just how big of a deal cardio really is. You should be doing your cardio in some kind of fun fashion. That's my opinion. But I there's like a poo-pooing or whatever you want to call it on cardio, as if it's like a bad thing. No, the zealotry around this is that even a word? The zealots of strength and conditioning versus the zealots of cardio. It's just, it doesn't have to be such an extreme. So cardio is really good for what cardio is really good for your autonomic nervous system, for thickening the wall of the heart in a good way, for de-stressing, sleeping better, better sex. But the problem with cardio is when people are doing it way too much. They're doing it, they're bragging about running 35 miles a week. It's like, you do not need to run 5 miles every single day. That would just be ridiculous. You don't even need to run a mile every single day. You should probably only be doing about 30 to 45 minutes of cardio total in a given week. If you just did 1 day a week of 120 to 140 beats per minute for 30 to 45 minutes, that would suffice your cardio needs. So anyway, what are trainers scared for you to know? That cardio is still great for you, and that's for the strength training zealots. And for the cardio zealots, the cardio bunnies, they don't want you to know how great of a deal strength training really is, and that it is, in a sense, good for your heart in a way that still puts pressure on the heart. And this is a tough one for people to get through their heads. I say this, and sometimes people just like almost borderline laugh at me, but your heart rate still goes up when you do a squat or a bench press or a push-up or whatever the thing is. It still goes up. You are still putting a stressor on the heart. It is good for your cardio to do strength training.